Okay.
And it looks like that does work.
Oh, it will? Because it's in a PDF.
It seems like it's working.
Oh, all right.
At least with the test I did. So.
Yeah, that's fine.
Get out of this.
All right, so it looks like everyone has made their way back. Hope you had a nice lunch. There's still plenty of cookies and snacks over there if you need a little afternoon pick-me-up as we go through the sessions.
Oh, sweet. Okay, yeah. Sure. Sorry.
No, you're totally fine. So, as promised, I have Karen and Sandra here to talk about Credentials 2.0 and QRIS. I will let them give their full introductions because as many people with CDE, your titles are very, very long. You can give a better explanation.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah. So continue, eating if you need to finish up, but we'll pull back together and continue with our sessions now.
Thank you, Claire. You want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. So I'm Sandra Ranum, and I am one of the co-directors of the Early Childhood Professional Development System in the Office of Early Learning and School Readiness at CDE, so in the same office with Michelle back there. And we, out of our team within that office, we manage the professional development information system, the implementation of early childhood competencies and credentials and everything wrapped around that. I'll do that portion of the presentation, and then Karen is going to start us off.
Hi, I'm really excited to be here this afternoon, and my name is Karen Imboden, and I am with the Colorado Department of Human Services. So we are in very close partnership with Colorado Department of Ed, and the Colorado Department of Human Services has governance over the QRIS as well as the PDIS systems. And so that's how we connect. Of course, we just really like each other too. We've been working together for many, many years, which is so exciting. I know you guys probably find that in your profession too, as you move on, you find the same group of family. And I think that's what makes education kind of special. So what we're going to kick off with today is an overview of the Colorado Shines system, which includes both the PDIS side as well as the quality rating side. And generally we start with kind of the quality rating because it's really more about what's happening with your overall program. And then the PDIS side, which Sandra will take more time and really get you guys some really great information about the credential and the professional development system, is really more for the professional individually. And then how these pieces kind of come together, we're going to share with you today as well. So we'll kind of get started talking about what Colorado Shines is, talk a little bit about the structure, but first we kind of like to know about what you guys know at this point. Who's never heard of Colorado Shines? And don't be afraid to raise your hand, it's all right. Great. And then how about those of you guys, well, I've heard a little bit, not real sure what's happening. Awesome.
Just changed.
Awesome. Yes, it did. Can you believe that Colorado Shines is actually 1 year old this month? Yes. Pretty exciting. And wait till I show you what we've done in here. It's pretty exciting as well. How about you guys who are like, I know this stuff forward and backward, I could teach the class.
Almost.
Oh, I'm going to pick on you.
There will be a test.
So,
if I pass the test, can I bump up a level on my credential?
You got to talk to this lady right here. So we will spend a little time going through the structure, a tiny bit of the history just because there's some relevance there. And then so as you guys, I understand, are administrators in your programs. So this part will be relevant mostly for you. When Sandra gets a little deeper in the professional side, you'll see how it's relevant for both you and the staffs that you work with. So.
Can I ask a quick question? So how many people are from the metro area? And so how many people traveled in, and where did you travel in from?
From the salt.
Okay, awesome. Anywhere else outside the metro area?
I'm kind of new to the area. I came from Fort Collins. I don't know if that's considered metro
It's
considered-
becoming more and more.
Yeah.
We're expanding.
It's still a long drive, so you get
Yes.
credit for that. But yeah, our metro is seems to be shrinking a bit, so, or expanding a bit, I should say. Okay, so I'm gonna try to.
Was that everyone, or did you? Okay, so everyone else is pretty. Okay.
So thank you guys again for being
Yes,
here. We
thank
appreciate your time. We know that we're in the way of. We know we're after lunch. Ooh. And that we made you come in from the beautiful sunshine, ooh. So, but we're glad we're not, like the end of the day. So, okay, so we're gonna kind of get going. All right, hey, it does work, yay. So Colorado Shine's kind of an overview of that. It's really been built to become a network for programs who really want to work on their quality journey. So you guys can have the absolute best quality there is, but that takes work to maintain that. So it's a constant journey of quality improvement that we're striving for, and we have programs who are at the very emergent stages and programs who are at the very high stages of this. and I apologize for the coughing. I'm getting over a nasty case of bronchitis, but thankfully doing better now. It's also providing access to funding for both professional development, scholarships, as well as funding on a program level. There's quality incentives, there's quality dollars associated with participating in these higher levels of the quality rating. It's a system that kind of connects you with your colleagues. And most importantly, we have a state that we've done some really great things about helping parents understand why quality, why choice. But guess what they still do? Chit chat. How do parents find quality right now? Or how do they find, they Google it, they might ask their neighbor, they might drive down the street and see the first program that's right next to them and say, that's convenient. And so while we don't want to discount the intelligence of a family who's looking for quality care, we want to help bolster them, give them tools and resources to really understand how to make the best informed choice. And of course, we're always going to drive them towards a program that is serving has a high quality program. So that's one of the big pieces that we launched this year. Was we just rolled it out, 2 weeks ago, is a more robust search feature for families to actually find programs through Colorado Shines. And if we get some time, we'll show you these systems. I want to point out that it says right there, it's fee-free. So that is the case right now. If you are a licensed program under the Colorado Department of Human Service licensing, which I think most of you are, if you serve early ed, you can participate in this and there's no cost to you. No cost to go through the rating, no cost for the quality improvement aspects, the training modules, and the supports such as coaching and technical assistance. And so one of the questions we get, well, why should I even do this? My school's prominent, my family's come to me, they live in the neighborhood, and some of it's just a sense of pride. Show us what you got, show the community what you got, and some of it's just for the reasons we know early education is important, all of those things. So it's like, we know that students who go through high quality care are less likely to be included in the justice system, more likely to graduate, more likely to earn more likely to contribute to their community, more likely to have a higher paying job when they're done, more likely to go on to college. So those are tried and true statistics. You can look those up, 0 3. And use those when you're kind of talking to your parents, talking to your staffs. And basically, this is just the right thing to do for our kids here in Colorado. So we're going to talk a little bit about the structure of QRIS, how the system's built, how to navigate it, why we built it the way we built it. We have what's called a hybrid system. So who knows about level 1? How many of you guys are level 1? Probably most of you. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. So level 1 is?
If you are licensed and
Exactly. So you are a licensed provider through the Colorado Department of Human Services licensing. So, as different from you being a licensed person through CDE. So there's confusion.
Program
But
license.
yes, exactly. There you go. But we do get some of those confusions. So yes, everyone is participating if you are a Colorado licensed program at this point. How about level 2? So we've got level 1, level 2, and then we've got this like conglomerate over here. But level 2,
I believe this one is a major information, your teaching degrees, your hours, your other trainings.
that's a good part of it, right? So level 2 is kind of that preparatory step to get in that nice place of saying, I'm getting ready. So I am actually doing a QRIS application. I'm getting my quality improvement plan work. You know, this is what I want to focus on. Getting my teachers into PDIS and getting them registered. Simple registration for level 2, which is nice. It's a quick 5-minute thing for them. And my staff is completing training modules at this stage. Now I will tell you there's tiny controversy around training modules, and we're working to broaden the library, but they are pretty basic level. They're intended to tie directly into what the Colorado Shine standards are all about. So initially some folks get in there and like, oh, I know this stuff. I know about children with special needs. But really the intent is to link it back to the structure for Colorado Shine so you know how you're meeting certain points within the point structure. And actually there's some really good modules out there. And we continue to build the library. So the nice thing is, well, we require an average of 10 hours per teacher that's in your program. You guys can figure out how that makes sense. So if you've got somebody who's real emergent and they want to do all 15, 17, I think we've got maybe even more than that now. I know. There's quite a few hours out there available. And then another teacher who maybe is your more senior teacher who has a lot of this knowledge and maybe is going to be in the nuts and bolts of the rating, maybe does, 5 or 7 of these course hours. And so blended together, you're meeting 75% of your staff earning 10 hours or more within Colorado Shines. So that gets you to, you apply for a level 2. And if you're doing all of those things, it's a desk audit, if you will, and we will issue your level 2. So that's a really nice prep step to get ready for the next levels 3 through 5, which we consider our high quality levels. Oops.
Can I interject for a
Yes,
second?
please.
So you mentioned submitting transcripts, training certificates, all of that. That is part of applying for the early childhood professional credential that we'll get into very detailed in a bit. And that actually comes into play in what Karen will talk about next. That's not required at level 2 to have an early childhood professional credential yet.
So just the simple registration.
Our staff can certainly do that, but it's just important to understand that that's not required at level 2. Completing the training modules, the level 2 modules in PDIS is, and having an account in PDIS, but then it's not until levels 3 through 5 that the early childhood professional credential becomes a part of the rating.
Sure.
Questions on the levels 1 and 2? Why do you think we did this? Yeah, go ahead.
So you said, I just want to clarify about the hours, like if it's just the 2 of us in our preview program basically,
Yeah.
then we can just do half and half to be how many?
You have to have an average of 10.
Average 10.
Yeah, so you guys might do 10 each,
10.
right? And you can pick and choose what really makes most sense for you versus the most sense for your other, your partner over there. So I think that's what I love about the level 2 training modules is there's a choice as well as there's a variety now. When we first launched, we had, here's your modules. And a year later, we've really built the library. We'll continue to build the library. We'll connect new research into our point structure and continue to build that out.
Are the training modules free?
Yes. Thank you for asking that.
And they meet annual clock
Yes.
hour requirements for licensing.
Yes. So
purposes as well.
thank you very much for mentioning that because that is a big plus. You've got to do the training anyway. This is a way for you to do that. especially, isn't it always the case when you have an in-service day and then you hire a teacher like a week later and you're like, oh, how am I going to get in their training hours? So this is a great way for them to self-pace through that as well. So every unit online, one-on-one with your computer, counts for 1 training hour. There's a couple that are little that are 1.5 or 2. We are starting to build out what's called face-to-face trainings, where an approved trainer or an approved coach trainer could come and actually do face-to-face trainings, and those are actually worth 2 hours. So recently at the Rocky Mountain Early Childhood Conference, we did a track, a level 2 track, and we've had several teachers come through and actually earn all of their level 2 hours during those 2 days. So it was kind of a pilot for us. It was a little tricky, but it was good. It turned out really well. So if you guys don't have questions on levels 1 and 2, feel free to ask them now if you do. We're going to kind of launch into a little bit more of the, I would say it's a little bit more complicated, but it's also, just part of the rating system is what we call our point structure. So we consider levels 3 through 5 our high quality levels. So this is what the point design looks like. So this is always fun. So right here in this column, there's points available. But in these columns, there's minimum points that are needed. So you can see, for workforce as an example, there's 31 different ways that you can earn points in workforce. And you only need 18 of them to get to level 5. So this rating system was built on choice, so it meets multiple different philosophies. How many of you guys were familiar with the Qualistar rating that we used for years? A couple of you. So we learned, it was great for our state, and we learned a lot of things about that rating system, but there were also lots of things that could be improved upon. So it was very structured, and it was pretty contained. You had one way of kind of getting there. And when we started looking nationally at what a rating system could do, what looked like in other states, we started to see much more of this like points-driven system. So if you're focused on family engagement, for example, and you really, there's a few things in there really, really driving you, it's part of your strategic plan, whatever, those are obviously the elements where you're going to work on and earn points, where you might be more focused on another area of family engagement. And so you would work in different areas of that to earn different points. So we'll show you what that looks like in a little bit. Now, the one thing that you do need to know, to reach a level 3, you must have these minimums in all categories. So you can't focus all your time on family partnerships but not focus on child health. So it's a balance of all of those 5 indicators. However, again, lessons learned. Those of you who knew people maybe that went through our previous rating system, Qualistar, and somebody missed a quality rating by 1 point. We have a solution for that. So we also put into our rating system what's called optional points. There's 12 available. A program can earn all 12. They can use 6, and they can apply those in any category to meet the minimum. So if you're 2 points short in leadership, management, administration, which you guys wouldn't be, that's not an area that you struggle in, you would be able to apply 2 optional points that you earn and meet the minimum there. So again, it is not intended for anybody to go, so sorry, you can't have a level 3 through 5. So we really tried to build flexibility in there. Yes?
Only 2 points
That's right.
for each category.
That's correct. Now, why would that be? So you exactly. You're still really focused on those 5 standard areas, but you just might be a little bit short because you're working on policy implementation at the time that you're going through the process. We just don't want that to be a barrier for you. So let's talk also about, oops, I'm still getting used to this. This element down here, how many of you are familiar with the environment rating scales? Good, lots of you. So that is a tool that we are using currently to show minimums that need to be met in those areas. And Colorado's been using this tool for, I think it's about 15 to 20 years now. And we're good at it. And so our average ratings in the state are pretty darn high for those programs that have gone through it. But we still use national averages to come up with these because we never got to touch about 85% of the programs in the state. So we know there are lots of programs out there still in an emerging state. So we went with national averages as far as these are concerned, maybe just slightly higher because we've been doing this for a while, but that's also a minimum that needs to be met. And for you guys, it would be the ECRS tool. I don't think any of you guys have infants and toddlers, right? And so you would be assessed when you're going for your level 3 through 5 with that tool. And we use that because it is the most nationally recognized, number one, but tested for meeting standards for baseline, yeah. So we are recognizing the class tool as well, which hopefully you guys are familiar with that, within our point structure. We hope that as we move our rating system forward, that we'll be able to start using the class tool as also a way to meet some minimum points within that. So I'm going to skip the next slide because it's not relevant, but just so you know, because I know you work in your communities, there is also a family child care home point structure. So they would be rated on an entirely different scale because they have an entirely different type of program. Generally, it's one person in their home, and there's a different tool, and generally they don't have a workforce except for themselves. So we wouldn't be holding them accountable to the same standards. Do these make sense? That's great. So you can find all of this stuff online too. So there's another way to get recognized for high quality, again, at levels 3 through 5. So we know that it's not a one-size-fits-all for lots of folks. There's different ways to earn quality and different ways to show quality in programming. So these are other possible ways to do that. One is if, and this current one on top, currently qual-star rated programs, all of them will expire by February 2017. So that's the last rating that we did in the state was in 2015. So that will sunset, and that rating has sunsetted, so nobody's actually getting a qual-star rating anymore. But we wanted to honor those programs who've gone through that process, had earned a rating level, and continue to honor that through their expiration date. When they come up for renewal, they'll renew under the Colorado Shines model. Other ways are through accreditations. Are any of you guys NACE accredited, or? Okay. So occasionally we'll come across a school group that's NACE accredited, so I thought I'd ask. But these are, NAEYC is National Association for the Education of Young Children, NACE, National Early Childhood Program Accreditation. This is going to be a test for me. American Montessori Society. Association for Christian Schools International, the National Association for Family Child Care, Advanced Ed. Anybody Advanced Ed? There's lots of schools out there that have gone through that. And then the Family Child Care Quality Certificate Program. So they're recognized at different quality levels, NAEYC being our only top quality level site. No level 5s, as you saw. So we have not honored an alternative pathway at level 5 at this point. Our system's going to be going through an evaluation. In fact, it has already started. What we learn from the evaluation may change how we actually categorize crosswalks. So right now, those are the approved accreditations. They went through an incredibly rigorous process to actually get recognized in the system. Their applications are all about this big. And they had to show how their accreditation standards met the standards of Colorado Shines. There's one other designation, Office of Head Start Grantee and Delegate Programs. Anybody in here? So You guys will know that the Office of Head Start federally administered and with oversight of over, I think it's about 1,700 standards that programs who are designated Head Start have to meet. And we did a crosswalk with the Head Start program. It looks very similar to our high quality levels in Colorado Shines. And so they are getting an alternate pathway recognition as well. Questions on that? So I show this just to say you don't have to have an assessor come on site and go through this process. These are other ways to actually meet high quality levels. And again, building flexibility into this system so it's not just one way, really helping to meet philosophies like we've got the Montessori accreditation, we've got the Christian accreditation, to really help programs make a good choice about how they want to go about this. So this is our 1 year results today. And if you ever see this slide in any other venue, the numbers will change because they change daily. So in particular every month. So for example, see that level 5 programs, there's 3. Well, as of today, there's 4. So I know. So, good news. We got a DPS program that came through level 5. So we are proud to say that we've got nice progress after 1 year. This is over 25% of licensed programs. And while it may not sound a lot, I'll put this in perspective for you. When we had our voluntary rating system, we never reached more than about 10% of all licensed programs in the state. So in 1 year, we've reached 26%. So we're pretty excited about that. It's not good enough for our leadership. I look at this number, the difference of those level 2, 3, 4, 5 programs in that 46, 22 is about 3,300. That's my to-do list. So,
That's
yes.
my question is it, as I heard through the grapevine or something that I heard, that somebody said, well, Colorado Shines really wants to encompass all, make sure that all licensed programs have some sort of quality or Colorado Shines rating. And so is that sort of the goal?
That is the goal. So this rating is actually embedded in the licensing system. So by nature of being licensed, you're already a quality level 1. So, and so that's why we call that our to-do list, because we want to see folks. We know there's folks out there that are already high quality. You guys are probably most of them. So, but it's kind of going through that process and getting that recognition. And we know after a year, we couldn't have possibly touched 4,600 programs. So we have, of course, our ready programs that got in fast, programs that were getting ready to expire. We got them in. We started working really closely with programs who were serving children who receive subsidy. So we got those guys through. Those are some of our more vulnerable populations to really push that high quality so kids are getting those, are getting enrolled in those high quality programs. So, and some of these are also our numbers for alternative pathways embedded in here. So let's talk a little bit about what it means to engage in Colorado Shines. So a program, we started to talk about that level 2 piece, and actually we can start at level 1. So a program who wants to be engaged, of course, in Colorado Shines, you either are because you're licensed, and you can stay there. There's no requirement to move further, or you can start to get engaged, to either work on level 2 or an alternative pathway. So here's what you have to do. You have to register at coloradoshines.com, and everyone has their own personalized page. So if you're licensed and you sign in, you will find your information on your personal page. Kind of cool. It's a feed from our licensing system. You can receive a login information via email. You sign on that page and you'll say request a login, and you'll be able to get that there. Then, like I said, you have your own personalized program portal. You'll review that information. You'll update that information. Information that's not updatable means it's what's on your license with the Colorado Department of Human Services. If it's not right, please send an information sheet in, because we'd love to get it right. We've come across some, data that folks just didn't update around the year, so we'd love for it to be reflected correctly. And then I didn't mention this before, But because we're embedded in licensing, our licensing specialists are a big part of levels 1 and 2. So course licensing, you'll still continue to get your licensing visits. Now it'll be on an annual basis versus every 2 years, sometimes every 3 years. We went from some 3, some 2, down to 18 months. And it was really interesting for school-based programs because I used to run programs that closed in the summer. I wouldn't see my licensing specialist for years because they were like trying to come out when I was closed. So I think we got all that worked out in the Department of Human Services. But now, because of the federal child care block grant, is requiring us to go to a one-year visit code, we're making that shift this next year. So you'll start to see your specialists a little bit more often. And they're taking on a little bit of a TA role in this work. So they can be somebody that you can talk to about engagement with Colorado Shines. How do I get started? You know, and the really cool thing about all of this is that they will eventually have access to our professional development information system. And when your staff start to put their information in, they'll be able to do all of that review work prior to ever getting on site. Not taking up your time in the office. They'll do quick touch-base file audits, but they won't have to do that deep dive with the PD stuff, which is a real nice bonus and incentive for having folks get registered in PDIS.
So they aren't a separate license visit from your typical license?
Nope. So the only separate visit you'll see is, of course, your regular licensing visit. That doesn't change. There's a little bit of a misnomer out there that it's like, oh, if I get a Colorado Shines rating of 3 through 5, I don't have to see my licensing specialist. But that's still a health and safety check. And then you'll have, if you go through the quality rating process, you'll have an assessor that'll come out once every 3 years. So, and they're assessing you on those points and that ERS. Questions on that?
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
Uh-huh.
Not every 3 years and
Yeah. So, yeah.
years all over again, or they're,
Yes.
oh.
Yes. So the rating that some of us were aware of, the Fall-Star rating, was good for either 1 year or 2 years in the past. And they would go into every classroom and do an evaluation with the ERS tool. Under the new rating system, and because we're using national, data, we have learned that we could push to 3 years. That quality could be maintained generally. That we could also do a sampling of classrooms by age group. So if you had 2 preschool classrooms, only one of them would be observed. You don't get to choose, unfortunately. The system chooses for you. So the assessors don't get to choose either. They get assigned a classroom. So they'll come out and do that ERS tool, and that will cover your whole programs. So your license number would then have a 3 or a 4 or a 5, provided you met all those minimums.
That's for the initial behavior, or when the assessor inspected 3 years ago?
That's for the initial, and then every time afterwards. So to maintain, it's just like if you're going through an accreditation, it's good for a certain period of time, and then you have to resubmit everything and have another on-site assessment. It works the same way. Just like if your school is going through accreditation, school accreditation, you know that happens every, I think, 3 to 5 years, where somebody comes out and does visit and make sure that you're still meeting all of those requirements.
So like, for like all your policies and stuff, so every 3 years you have to re-upload?
That is correct. And I know that seems like a pain, but how many of you guys are using the same policies that you were using 3 years ago? Oh, I have to talk. Oh, well, So generally speaking, we have seen, movement. We've learned along the way that we need to make a change. And so that's why we require new data and information every 3 years.
So if we're at level 3 because we're an AMS
Uh-huh.
school, do we have to do all this other stuff on top of it, or we just say, we did this through AMS?
Yep. That's exactly right. The things that you do have to do, you still have to be registered in QRIS. So there's an application. It's a couple, might take you an hour at most. You still have to have your staff registered in PDIS. You don't have to go through the full credential process, although we really want you to, so we can kind of tell the big picture story about Colorado. And then you have to create a quality improvement plan. Now, why would I ask you to do that? Remember what I talked early on in the presentation, that there's incentives available? There's money available even if you go through that process, but it has to be tied back to a quality improvement element. So your quality improvement element might be, I want to host a family gathering event so we can all get to know each other and build better family relations. You could use quality improvement for that. You work through your early childhood councils. They're the ones that have the dollars via the office. And then you'll sign an agreement with them that you'll follow the rules, and then you'll be able to get access to those funds. And this is just a couple of things that you have access to. As a program who's going through this process above level 2, you have access to a coach, access to the research and referral agencies. It's kind of the role where they're going to be, communicating your quality levels, know what your openings are, all the things that R&R is doing. The early childhood council, who's going to administer the grants, so they're there for technical assistance. They're there for grant administration. Your professional development team, Sandra is here to represent them today. You have support from them, support from your licensing specialist, and then you have support from your quality rating specialist. So they're also doing an element of technical assistance for you when you're getting close to that rating time. After you've said, I'm ready, I want to do this, they don't come after you, you tell us. Then they'll help you through this process, what to expect, how to upload your documentation, what kind of documentation you need to upload to make sure we're recognizing the things that you're doing. Then you have a quality rating assessor who will help with that. So there's a data specialist and an assessor, yes.
Do you know what the council is called for Arapahoe?
I do. It's Arapahoe Early Childhood Council. They're awesome. And Gretchen is the director over there. And the whole team is just amazing. So, and I can say that for all of your early childhood councils. They're very, very close partners with us, and we couldn't do this work without them, there's no doubt. I'm trying to think. Okay, so really on this slide, and Claire. Oh, hate me. So Claire has this slide. Can get it to you, either email or whatever, on your website. So here's numbers that we have. We have implemented email hubs through email. Send us your question. You'll get a question back. But we also have a 800 number that you can call, and it's about an 8 to 6 time period. And I know that doesn't work great for all of you guys, but if you leave a message at the end of the day, they'll call you back at the beginning of the next day. Press 1 for QRIS, press 2 for PBIS. One number gets you to both help desks. And so we do keep those staffed with folks who are doing this work every single day. So they're going to be able to answer your questions, walk you through an application. If there's ever a glitch in the system, help you troubleshoot that. So it's really just runs the gamut of support that you might need to get through this process. So, what questions I can answer for you on the kind of programmatic side of things?
So you said there's nothing linked to the fund. Like, so if we are, I'm in Denver, DPP, do we have to keep a certain rating to get those funds from the preschool program?
I'm glad you asked. So we're in partnership with DPP, of course. So they require a quality rating, used to be QualStar. So now they're, recognizing the Colorado Shines rating level.
Right.
So your parent credits are still based on your quality rating level. And I don't believe that they've implemented a minimum, like you have to be a level 3. I think they are providing the supports that you get from them will stay intact.
Right.
And you'll be able to, blend these together at this point. So, while we still have lots of money to share.
I just met with our government council representative.
Awesome.
So I just want to make sure that, we have to get under 3 to 5, and if we don't get that, we don't want to hurt any of our families that are attending.
Correct. So you have a current QualStar rating of?
I'm not sure. I just
Okay. Oh, No
So.
worries. No worries. Well, I
know
can
we're
tell you
doing
that,
this year, I think towards the end of the year.
yeah, almost, I'll get this percentage wrong, but it's like 95% of the DPP programs are at levels 3 through 5. Really, really high quality levels, which is awesome. And so when you come to get expired, hopefully they talked to you about this yesterday. You'll go through the Colorado Shines rating system, and they will be there with you. Again, just an amazing, well-staffed, well-resourced early childhood counselor. I am going to take any questions and then pass the baton to Sandra to kind of talk more about the PDIS system and how it connects.
Thank you. So as Karen said at the beginning, QRIS website and all of those supports and resources are really the program level side of Colorado Shines. And the Professional Development Information System, PDIS, is the individual side. And the PDIS is available for anyone who wants to participate in it and take advantage of the resources it provides. And it has some connections to QRIS for staff who work in programs that are participating in QRIS. So there's those connections, but then it's also available for any individual who wants to explore it. How many people have been to the PDIS? Oh, good. So a good majority of you, right? So the broad overview of what the professional development information has been created for is to support individual professionals to provide professional development. So there is a catalog of online modules available. We also can manage registration and management of face-to-face trainings, and so we are working with early childhood councils and other excuse me, professional development providers to start connecting trainings into the system. And so, because it tracks that training and education for each professional in the system over time and can become an ongoing professional portfolio for each person. It also calculates the early childhood professional credential. So how many people are familiar with the previous or familiar with the early childhood professional credential, and for how long have you been aware? Like, does anybody have a credential? Okay, and did you have a credential for how many years? Okay, so our older system? 6. Okay, so you're aware. So we've had a credentialing system, a voluntary credentialing system in Colorado since about 2000. And our credentialing system was aligned very closely with the core knowledge standards that are used to inform community college coursework and what professionals in early childhood should know in order to best serve children and families. And those core knowledge standards were developed in the 90s. And so in recent years, Colorado's developed the early childhood competencies for educators and administrators and officially adopted those in 2013. And the competencies outline that knowledge piece, what professionals need to know, but then also the skills of what they need to be able to do with that knowledge. That knowledge is important, but then what does it actually look like in practice is the most critical piece when it comes to outcomes for children and families. So the credential has been revised to align with those competencies, and it's now an individualized, more flexible, points-based system than our previous credentialing system. And it's now all issued online through the Professional Development Information System. And we'll get into those details. The PDIS also provides information to QRIS, and you heard Karen talk about most of those pieces. So when individuals register and create an account and take those level 2 courses, that data is shared with the QRIS website so that then the program's information in QRIS has that as it applies towards their level 2 rating. Yes?
Are the trainings associated on the PDIS website?
Yes.
There's a link to that?
Yes. Yes. So those level 2 modules that are required for QRIS level 2, you complete in the PDIS. Each individual completes in the PDIS. But then that completion data is shared with the QRIS website. as well as credential level data, if the professionals have the credential. And there's also, in the higher levels, levels 3 to 5, programs can earn points for their staff creating an individual professional development plan based on a competency self-assessment. Those pieces are also done in PDIS, and then that information is shared with QRIS. Okay. So yes, don't hesitate to ask questions.
What about all the training that you have done outside of PAS? That's where I am right now. I'm having an issue that I scanned all the documents together into one.
Mm-hmm.
I did a chart of all the experience,
Mhm.
attached it to it, but I'm not seeing all this transfers in there.
Right, and we can look at that more closely. So you upload those. So now when you apply for your professional credential, in the past you had to mail us a packet. You had to ask the university or your college to send us transcripts. You couldn't open them, and they often would get lost in the mail. And so now you maintain all of those records for yourself, and you upload them into the PDIS. And they're likely there. We can check on it specifically. But we then need to review those on our side to verify them for then you to earn those points towards your credential. Our previous credential, we processed an average of about 1,500 applications each year. We launched the PDIS in April last year, and we've already processed 5,000 credentials for people. So the numbers have gone up significantly. So we've increased our staffing capacity, but we're still not keeping up with the demand. And so it takes a couple of months for us to get through that review process at this point. So we're about to increase our staffing capacity again to get through that. We're working towards a 3-week turnaround time, because then right now we do prioritize reviewing submissions for staff who work in programs that are going through that level 3 through 5 rating, because with that, it won't hold up a rating. If your program's going through that level 3 through 5 rating, the submissions will be reviewed in time for the rating. But you have until the end of your rating window to submit documentation. So the review won't be totally finalized until after that rating window closes. We have a couple of weeks to get that done before the rating is finalized and the overall rating is determined. So we work very closely with CDHS and Qualistar, the vendor, to make sure that that process gets done in time. So then, yes. Okay. So all of this also is really telling the story and gathering and determining the picture of our workforce as a whole. In Colorado, many and they can use that information to advocate for the workforce, to tell the story of the workforce. We haven't had that, and so the PDIS does that for us. So it's going to, especially as we have more information over time, it's going to tell us about the workforce. What are the strengths of the workforce? What are the needs of the workforce? And for us to be able to use that to get a better understanding overall for Colorado across the state. So the major components of the PDIS, all of this is based on the foundation of the competencies, is the foundation of the whole system. The first piece is your professional portfolio, that you enter your contact information, some demographic information about yourself, your employment information, you provide education and training and credential information. So that's kind of your personal portfolio. When you register, you'll see there are some pieces of that are required parts of registration and other pieces that are voluntary, that would be useful information for us to have, again, to be able to tell that big picture story about the workforce, but that we're not going to require in order for you to register. So that's the individual professional portfolio piece of it. Then it has an entire learning management system side of it. And so that's what houses and delivers those online modules. There will be more courses built out over time. We can manage registrations for face-to-face trainings, And eventually we'll have a training approval process. We have had in Colorado for a number of years a voluntary training approval process. And we're working to build that into an online process, and that's how additional courses will be added to the catalog. And the reason for doing that is because then by going through that training approval process, trainings will be associated with the competencies that they focus on, and we'll see that there's some quality instructional designs embedded in the training that really meet the needs of adult learners to make sure that professional development is at a quality level as well. And then that connection to competencies ties into this next piece of the system, which is once you register, you can do your own individual competency self-assessment. So it's looking at each individual competency and thinking about which of these competencies do you feel like you've really developed and are feeling strong in, and which are some that you feel like you could learn more about and you'd want to focus more for yourself. The competencies, how many people have seen the Colorado competencies for early childhood educators and administrators? Some. Okay. You can see the full document in the PDFs. It's a big document. There's a lot of competencies. And the way they were developed is that they're for educators and administrators, so a variety of roles in the field. And they look at mastery. So what are entry, beginning level competencies up to, I really mastered this and I have really developed this competency. And it's not the expectation that any one professional would ever be at the mastery level of every single competency in that document, because not every competency is relevant for each role. So it's really about what role are you in right now and what are the relevant competencies for that role. And those roles vary from one program to the next, because what some teachers are responsible for in one program, they may not be responsible for in a different program. And so it's a little more individualized than that. But we have set some basic competency sets. So we've had stakeholders that looked at what are kind of the basic competency expectations for teacher, assistant teacher, director, family child care provider, or what we've called teacher leader and director leaders. So those more experienced teachers and directors. And we've identified competency sets for those. So as you complete the competency self-assessment, part of the registration, you choose the professional role that relates most to the work you're doing. And then the system compares your self-assessment to the competency set for that role and will make recommendations based on the gaps of where you've assessed yourself at a lower competency than what's been identified for that role you've selected. And then it asks you about what are your goals, and based on those two things, we'll make recommendations for your individualized professional development plan because of the competencies that have been connected to trainings or courses. It will say these are the competencies that you may want to focus on, and here are professional development opportunities that focus on those competencies. And then there are other professional development resources that will link you to, such as scholarship opportunities, links you to colleges that offer courses that might focus on those competencies for your PD plan. That's the way the system is designed, and it will become more and more robust and more individually meaningful as we get more and more courses in there. Right now, it's limited courses, so a lot of times the recommendations are kind of the courses that are available. They may even be courses you've already taken. But as it gets built out, it will become more refined for each individual. Okay. Any questions about any of those pieces? Yes.
Just to be clear, none of this ties into the child care licensing requirements for any particular classroom or leadership ability. So somebody couldn't go from being a teacher to being director credential by using courses that are PDFs.
Well, the credential is a points-based system, and you do get points for completing trainings And the courses, the trainings that are in the system, once you complete them, they automatically award points towards your credential. And so the credential is now so individualized that it really depends on the individual. So because childcare licensing rules and regs for centers in the new package that went into place in February, the early childhood professional credential was included as an additional option for meeting the different personnel requirements. So for example, having a level 4 early childhood professional credential in the new system, not in the old credential system, but in the new system, can be used to meet director qualifications. But having a level 4 credential requires that you have points in formal ed training and experience. So you would need to have that formal ed component and some experience, but trainings will.
But if I had an employee who had like a DA but was currently only qualified under the old system as a lead, and then they took some of the courses through this,
If-
they could offer themselves to an assistant.
If they are, so in the new rules, what?
If they have a BA in something.
Right, so you earn points in the new credential for a degree, and we'll go into that scoring. So yes, so if they, through the new credential, can earn a level 3 credential, that can be used to meet early childhood teacher qualifications. Okay?
I have a question. So we've had some feedback at our school, and I know there's another one source that they're required to pick one age level to be like licensed at, and we have multi-level classrooms. So how do we?
To be licensed, tell me more about
So we
pick an
have
age level to be.
ACE,
Mhm.
and then we have kindergarten in the same classroom, and we were receiving feedback that we had to pick one
In the PBIS
in
or
our like licensing. Like we could only be saying I'm teaching kindergarten or I'm teaching ECE. They wouldn't let us say we're doing both.
and so I'm not exactly sure which part, so I can't ask specific answer specific
Right.
licensing questions, but
I'm just asking in general, like what would our requirements be for like if you have something set up for that? Because that's our whole school is.
right, and in the PDIS, when you're registering and creating your account, there is a place where it asks you, you're entering your employment information, and it asks what age level you work with, but you can select more than one. You have to push control and then select more than one.
I'll ask.
So,
you.
yeah, I'm not sure what part of the, which part of the bigger
We
system
haven't, like,
that
everyone
is.
that is at our school is, I don't think anyone's gone since we've not been licensed for a while, so do we have
So
to go through
teacher
this now?
license, so you're
Yeah.
licensed through CDE as
Yeah.
teachers,
Yeah.
okay. No, you don't have to go through this.
Okay.
And it's not, right now, it's not connected to CDE teacher educator licensing. We're working to make some connections,
Okay.
but they are two separate systems.
Okay. Can
So
you
if-
answer questions about that?
Not very, no.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I've not worked in and don't know real detail the CDE teacher licensing system.
Okay.
So again, the competencies are the foundation of the PBIS, and we talked about most of this, that they're connected to the self-assessment, to that professional role that you select, the professional development offerings in the system, the recommendations that the system makes for you, and we will be adding additional competency sets to the system. So for example, in Colorado, we have coaching competencies for early childhood coaches, and we have a coaching credential. And so we will be adding that to the PBIS as well. So then there will be a self-assessment for the coaching competencies, and coaches can do that self-assessment and have a PD plan for their work as a coach. So the 5 steps for kind of being successful in this is going to the website and creating your account. And on the homepage there's a resource section that has some tutorials and guides. There are some videos of like how to submit documents towards your credential that shows you step by step how to do that. So registering, participating in the courses, applying for your credential, completing the competency self-assessment, and then developing your own PD plan. So registration is pretty straightforward, and if there are ever questions that anybody has, they can contact the help desk. But you do need to have an email account, and we strongly suggest that you use your personal email account, because that you set up as your username. So that way, if you use your personal rather than a work, if you change your employment, you don't have to change your login information. Google Chrome is the best browser to use. The system doesn't work very well in especially Internet Explorer. And it's a 5-step process. There's a registration wizard that will walk you through it. So help information, and this is available on the homepage. There's a PDIS help email address, and again, that 1-800 number that Karen mentioned. If you're wanting PDIS help, be sure to select option 2. And you register on the homepage there. So the courses, you do need to be registered in the system to complete the courses online. You go to the course catalog, and again, they're free and they meet ongoing clock hour requirements.
On courses, if you take more than the 10 hours, do you still get points if you took like 3 more classes towards your credential level?
So we can look more closely at the credential scoring, but yes, the credential scoring for training hours, you max out on clock hour points if you have more than 31 training hours in the last 3 years. That's where you'd max out on credential points for training hours. We've pretty much talked about, so those of you that do have a credential in the old system, those are valid until they expire. We're not accepting any more applications in that old system, but they're valid until they expire. And if your program does participate in the level 3 through 5 rating, that level of your current credential would apply towards that. And it would be in the system and would feed over to the QRIS website just the same as if you had a new credential in the new system.
And you also get priority for scoring.
So the way the new credential works, as I mentioned, it's a points-based system. And so there are currently 3 ways that you earn points for your credential. You earn points in formal education. So you can earn points for the highest degree you've achieved, regardless of what that degree is. And then you can get additional points if any of the degrees you've completed are an early childhood related area of study that you completed in the last 25 years. And additional points for any early childhood related coursework in the last 15 years. And the coursework points you can get if you haven't yet achieved a degree. So for example, if you have an associate's in early childhood, and then you went on and got a bachelor's degree in geology because you decided you really just wanted to focus on geology instead, you'd get points for your bachelor's degree, but then you'd also get the 4 points for area of study because of your associate's degrees in early childhood. And if your associate's degree was within the last 15 years, those courses in your associate's degree would earn you points. Or you've just entered the field, you're working towards director qualification, so you've completed 5 early childhood courses in the last 15 years, you get points for those 5 courses. And was there a question?
I moved to Colorado 7 years ago, and I took the challenge exam to get my director's license. Does that count towards coursework or being within that?
It doesn't in this new system, no. Because that was one of the challenges in our previous credentialing system, was that it required very specific college courses that you could really only access through our community college system. So people coming in from other states, or people who came in a different pathway and may have even completed a master's degree, but didn't take those specific courses, couldn't really qualify for our credential. And so we had the challenge assessment option, where you could take a test to demonstrate that you still had that knowledge and get the credential. But in our new system, because it's more inclusive and recognizes any degree and a broader variety of areas of study and courses, we phased out the challenge assessment.
And then,
Uh-huh.
when I took the challenge exam, it was for the 8 courses before it was changed to 2 courses, so then I had 2 years to get any 2 courses. Does EQIT count?
It does. Yes, for licensing purposes,
Does it count as a credential?
it counts for a credential if you, so EQIT, in some communities, you also have the option to do some additional assignments and get college credit for ECE 111. So if you have ECE 111 that you got by doing EQIT, but you have ECE 111 on your transcript, then you would get coursework points for formal education. But if not, but you took EQIT in the last 3 years, you get professional development points for clock hours. Okay, and I think I saw 2 other questions. We'll go here and then in the back.
So I have 2. Elementary education doesn't count anymore, so it won't do that.
Elementary, for the credential, elementary education does not count because it is really early childhood focused. So it doesn't, you get points for the degree. You wouldn't get the area of study points, but then you might get coursework points if some, so like, because we're defining early childhood as birth through 8. So elementary reading courses about teaching reading, because that's in, happens in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. Those courses we do award points, or other courses that might be a part of an elementary degree but are really focused in that under age 8 range would count for coursework.
And then my second question, just because I'm starting to get confused. So, in order to become director qualified, they just have to move up to credential level, or do they have to still follow the licensing?
So it's still licensing. Director qualifications are managed through child care licensing. In the new child care licensing package, there's an additional pathway option. So if you look at licensing, there are multiple different ways doesn't have those 10 courses, but they have earned a level 4 credential in the new system. They can use that to meet director qualifications. Still need to go through licensing to apply for your director's letter, but you can use that level 4 credential now to do that. Or you can use one of the other ways. So people have become confused thinking I'm no longer director qualified because now I have to have the credential, but that's not true. All of the previous ways are still valid pathways to director qualifications. The credential is an additional option, but not required.
So I have a teacher that's the old way, 3 classes away, but if she meets in the new system the level 4, then she can apply for her like after 3 classes.
It's an additional option.
But would her 3 courses add points to?
Yes, I mean, we're still encouraging those early childhood courses, certainly, and then it may increase her level even higher, depending on what her credential level is now. So, yes, I wouldn't say don't have her do those 3 courses, but yes, she may qualify for the director qualifications letter sooner if she's been able to achieve a level 4 credential. I think there's a question in the back, and then we'll come up front.
So I have a couple of teachers that have been around for a while, my principal being one of them, whose early childhood teacher credential under the previous rules with her Montessori credential. But it sounds like once she hits 25 years that that's not going to count anymore, or she's going to have to like go back to.
Well, if she's director qualified under one of the old, then she's still director qualified, and she can maintain her director qualifications through that. And that's the same thing. Early childhood teacher qualifications stayed the same, and an additional option was made available of using a level 3 early childhood professional credential. So if she's already, so she has an early childhood professional credential from our old system. That remains valid until the credential expires. And then if she wants to it does expire. And if she still wants to have an early childhood professional credential, she would need to apply through this system. But she
So
can't.
she is gonna have to go back and take EC courses
If
if she wants to keep that.
she wants to
If she
have,
wants to keep her ACT status.
I'm not sure on her specific case.
But if she graduated 30 years ago with a degree or something, I mean, like classes that were taken more than 25 years ago can't be applied with the new credentials? Is that why the 25 years
You were
is?
saying
The 25
25
years is for the area of study.
Okay.
So if you have an early childhood degree that you completed more than 25 years ago, then you wouldn't get those 4 points, but you'd still have your degree points.
Right, right, which is gonna be an additional.
Right. The reason it was developed that way is that the research shows that teachers are most effective when they have that specialized knowledge that's based on current research. So the intention is to incentivize degree completion. So get your degree, ideally have one focused in early childhood, and then maintain your knowledge base by taking additional courses throughout your career. So like a bachelor's degree is 15 points. The area of study is only 4 points. So as that expires, a couple of courses can maintain those points for you in the formal education part of the credential.
A couple of extra courses need to be EC courses, or they.
Early childhood related is what would earn you points for courses. That doesn't mean it has to be specifically ECE. ECE,
Like admin courses or something like that.
if they're related to early childhood administration, yes. Or so if it's an ECE course, then it definitely gets those points. But cultural responsiveness is critical in early childhood, right? So a course about being culturally sensitive and culturally responsive and understanding diversity and responding to diversity is going to also earn these points, even if it doesn't talk about early childhood.
Or my special ed teachers take special education.
Some, but not all. Some special education courses are more focused on older children, but some are focused on younger children, or there's specific focus areas within early childhood special ed that are critical. So working with families, collaborating with families, that's critical in early childhood. So those courses are considered early childhood related.
They're a master list somewhere.
We're creating it. It's been in development because we're reviewing transcripts and regularly on our team having conversations and looking at course descriptions and saying this, and what we look for is, does it align with the competencies? Do we see the content of this course clearly represented in the early childhood competencies? And if it does, then we recognize it. So in formal education, this whole point system is a 100-point scale, and you can earn up to a maximum of 50 points in formal education. And then professional development are your ongoing training hours. And so this, you can earn up to 30 points for trainings that you've completed in the last 3 years. So you get points for the number of training hours you've completed, and there are points for different ranges. And that is up to 15 points of the 30. And then the other 15 points can be earned by the types of training you participated in. And that's based on what research shows makes a training most effective. So trainings that are developed or delivered as a series over time, you get additional points for those trainings. Or if you participated in some coaching, in at least 8 hours of coaching as part of a training that you took, you would get additional points. Trainings that are at least 6 hours focused on children with high needs, you would get additional points. And then there's a list of qualifying credentials, licenses, and endorsements that if you maintain any of those, you get additional points. So having an early childhood teacher license through CDE, you get additional points. Other licenses that are really important in early childhood, the occupational therapist or speech language therapist, those types that in our previous credential didn't get recognized at all, but we know those roles are critical in the early childhood. So there's a whole list, and you can access all of this in the system. So up to 30 points there, and then experience. you can get up to 20 points for each year of experience. And knowing that what a year is varies depending on the setting you're working in. A year is defined as 1,820 hours, because that's the Department of Labor standards and aligns with licensing. So whether you're working full-time, part-time, 9 months, 12 months, a year is 1,820 hours. And we have a worksheet that helps you calculate that. So that's how a year is defined. And that's up to 20. So then your total number of points determines the credential level that you earn. Levels 1, 2, and 3, you have to have points from at least 2 areas. Levels 4, 5, and 6, you have to have points from all 3 of those areas. Okay? Yes?
The points have to be in this and points have to be in this, which is what I heard. Does the system, once you've entered everything, indicate to you you need more points in this area?
We're working.
Or is it where you can see that, hey, I need to work?
So, and we can go into the system and look at it more closely. Good, we still have 40 minutes. So yeah, I think we can have time to log in and I can show you. So you'll see in the credential area as part of your profile. In your profile in the PDIS, you go to My Credential. That's where you upload your documents. And it's sectioned by formal education, ongoing professional development, and experience. And it tells you your total points in those areas. We're working, so we had the scoring system, and we had this technology platform that we wanted to deliver the scoring system in, and we had to design how that platform would do that. So we created that and worked with our vendor who owns the technology platform. They've built it. We've now learned more about how it actually works and how it doesn't do everything we kind of envisioned it would do, and so we're strengthening it and enhancing it as we move forward. So there are pieces of it that will get stronger and more clear as we enhance it further. And I can explain that when we look at it in the system. This last area I want to talk about real quick is not yet available, but something that we're developing in the credentialing system, which is our demonstrated competencies component. So what we know is most important as far as what serves children and families best, it's those actual interactions, practices in the classroom, in interaction with children and families that matter the most. So in demonstrated competencies, we're looking at how can we award points for actual practice. And so we're looking at how can we use the tools that are available in our systems for that, such as if you've had a class observation in your classroom and you earned a quality score in that, it could then earn you points towards your credential. Or the environment rating scales. We're looking at a variety of different tools and how we can then recognize that in the system. But that's under development because we want to make sure that we do it in an appropriate way. We will soon, we've worked with Clayton Early Learning and their research side of that institute to help inform that, and they've done a literature and research review for us on this and made some recommendations. We'll have a course available soon where you can hear a presentation about how we're thinking about doing this and then respond to a survey to give us some feedback on how you think that would work and what you think might be strengths of that approach or concerns about that approach, and share your thoughts on that. So that will be available soon. Let's see, I might have already covered. Okay, so the competent, we'll go through the rest of this and then we can dig right into the PDIS and look at the credential pieces more closely. So the competency self-assessment, we've talked about that some, that you complete online. It is 128 questions because we have 128 competencies in our competency set. So we encourage you to not do it all at once. take your time, maybe go, one domain area at a time, or even, so the competencies are divided by high-level topic areas that we call domains, like child growth and development. That's a domain. Within each domain, there are individual categories, and within the categories are the actual competencies over the 4 levels from beginning to mastery. So just don't expect yourself to sit down and do that all at once. Take your time. And then it will create a competency profile for you that informs your PD plan. And we'll look at where that is in the PDIS. The individual PD plan, you have to do that competency self-assessment first because that informs the PD plan. It will then ask you, what's your goal? And we have, I think it's 5 general goal areas to choose from. Improve in my current position, prepare for a new position, increase my credential level. I'm blanking on what the other ones are. So you select from that, but then you can also individualize it if you want to. And then completing that self-assessment and a PD plan, if the staff in the program do that, then it earns points towards the program's rating. So PDIS resources, we've talked about most of those. So, and these numbers are, again, these numbers get updated all of the time, so these are already a little out of date. We have actually over 16,000 people registered in the PDIS at this point. Total course completions I know is over 60,000 hours so far. And I don't know the exact credentials awarded, but I know it's pretty close, if not right around 5,000 at this point. And that's all since we launched the system last April. So just a quote from one person who's been through many pieces of all of these different systems says that Colorado Shines will change the field of early childhood education, allowing it to move from simply being babysitting daycare to being early childhood education where learning from birth to 5 is valued at the same level as all other education. It will allow centers that truly value that to stand out from those who don't. Did you want to say anything to that slide? I haven't used this PowerPoint yet. So this is my first experience.
We always just throw something up that was Oak Street was one of our very first programs that went through the process, and she's had a quote about her experience.
So any other questions at this point? I know it's getting to be like the blood sugar dropping, nap timing part of the day. Do you want to stand up and stretch a little bit before we?
I just wonder, I don't think I have to contact the helpline, but since I'm new at Rocky Mountain Prep, and the other teacher was the program director, yes, I can't log on until they change her user.
And that would be in QRIS, logging in if they've had a director change.
So there's a way to go in and uncheck her and then add somebody new. You can only have 2 users at one time.
Right.
So you can, whoever has a current sign-in can just uncheck her, and then she's no longer, and then you can add somebody else.
And that's on the.
It's on your portal.
That's on the Colorado, so that would be at coloradoshines.com.
Okay.
Because in PDIS, you each have your own individual accounts, so.
So you could set up a whole bunch of people, but only 2 can be checked at once.
So then in PDIS, what happens is, as each person creates their account and they enter their employment information, when they choose your program as their employer, that means they're associating themselves with your program. That's when they would then show up on the workforce tab for your program in QRIS. When you're going through the level 3 through 5 part of the rating, there's a process that we call authorized representative process in PDIS, and once you're scheduled for a rating month, you would get these instructions. But the general piece is an administrator, such as a director or whoever the program decides is the appropriate person for the program, can do a security training in PDIS to get then permissions to be an authorized representative for that program in PDIS, and then they would see a list of people who've associated themselves as being an employee, being employed there, and can say, yes, this person works here, or no, this person doesn't work here, as a way to be a check and balance to make sure that those staff that feed into the workforce tab in QRIS is accurate, and that the program can have a double check on that. For PDIS, no. Yeah, that's it. But in QRIS, only 2 accounts per program for QRIS website.
So we have to, one of the reasons is because there's a license associated with those users, and so there's cost for every license that we use, plus there's a security measure. So to keep it as a short list of folks that have access to all the data, we've limited it to 2. And so far it seems to be working really well for most people. I can tell you it's tough for like multi-unit folks. Right. Exactly. So you're really going to want to set those 2 folks up who are going to be in that data system actually doing that data entry. So, and then if that's your HR person at the time, you can always uncheck them and then add somebody else yourself or whatever.
So I have a question for you. We're going for a rating this month sometime. Yay. So I have a staff that's no longer with us, but when she did the PDIS, she associated herself with us.
Yep.
But she's still showing up on the QRIS. So the only way to remove her, she would have to go into her PDIS and put her end date.
We have a solution.
Or you, or an authorized representative from your program. Yeah, so have you gone through
I
the
have tried.
PDIS
Coach.
security training?
No, I haven't.
So here's
Okay,
the
so-
other option for you. You can call the help desk
Okay.
and they can disassociate that.
Yeah.
That's, we don't want you, I mean, we want to get past just that being the way to, so that our directors are managing it going forward. But since you're so close in your rating window, that's what you're going to want to do. And then be sure that your assessor, the person you've been talking to at Ballstar, is aware that that staff member is no longer at your program.
Oh, darn it.
I have one question. You mentioned something about a window or then like, from your rating when you have the visit. So about a month ago, one of the nice people from Parsham came by, talked to us about it, gave us the website, how to log in and all that stuff.
That's probably
No.
from your council, maybe.
Do I have, I was kidding Esther, and I don't know if I have some time for me to submit my documentation so that we can hopefully achieve level 2 or keep on moving forward?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
is my window closed and I have to wait until next year?
So there's no window for level 2.
Okay.
It's always open. You're always. But when we talk about a rating window, that's for when the assessor comes
Got it.
out at the levels 3 through 5, and that's basically just to say, hey, sometime in the month of March, somebody's going to come out and do this assessment. So we keep it open so that we can get a good, kind of unannounced isn't the right word, but it's a way so that they're catching you at a moment that you might not be fully expecting somebody. We want to make sure that we're catching you at your normal day, right? So we allow folks to tell us, hey, I got field trips on these 5 days, don't call me. But any other time in March, feel free to come in and we're gonna see what you guys.
For my 371 right now.
Yeah.
I want the whole just
So working on
about
level
this.
2.
I can just keep on adding as we go.
Entirely at your own pace. Yep.
Do you want to show anything in the Colorado Shines
I
website
think
while
it
I
would
figure
be-
out my password?
Oh,
for
yeah.
PDIS?
And I was gonna say I could sign in, but
It's that's the danger of having the browser save your
Auto
password,
password.
and you can never log in on a different
I
computer.
know that's what I'm finding right now. I'm like, So on coloradoshrines.com, the nice thing about this is where families can go and search for childcare. So that's the website. There's a portal here for you as a for programs. There's also one here for professionals that basically just links you over to PDIS. So you could get to PDIS this way. You'd still log in and all of that. But when we were talking about resources and things of that sort, so this program resources tab, when you go in for programs, this is kind of tricky, but all of these are your licensing resources at the top. And then down here at the bottom are resources to help you kind of navigate the quality rating and improvement system. So there's a user's guide, there's some job aids, there's some fact sheets, things you might want to share with families as you're starting to go through this process. The evidence document is really your friend. So we didn't want you to have to guess as to what kind of documentation we were looking for you to earn points. We provided this detailed document to say for standard, I'll just pick one randomly, 3.11, you'd have to reference what that is. We didn't have it all in one sheet at this point. You need to upload a document showing your goals, outcomes, and strategies for this particular, I think this one is like, do you have a business plan or a strategic plan is the indicator. So here's the information you would upload to show that you have that. And here's the type of information that needs to be accounted for. So it needs to be current, it can't be 20 years ago. And it needs to show that there's goals, outcomes, and strategies and a timeline. So when you're thinking about going through this process, I tell you, even if you're not quite sure yet, this is a nice exercise to kind of go through and say, what documentation do I have? And just start putting it into a file. And the best thing to do is just kind of like get your tabs for workforce and a tab for family engagement and a tab for learning environment, and start figuring out what you already have and then maybe what you're working on. And then as you create new documents, policies, and procedures, just put them in that file. So when you're ready to go through a rating, you have a file. When you change a policy and procedure from 3 years ago, put the new one in your file, and just kind of keep a ongoing running document on your computer. It'll make it way easier.
This is a weird question, but you were talking about the different files and stuff. So would I have to take apart our parent handbook and
Nope.
the staff handbook, or just?
Glad you asked that question. So do you want to answer that question? She's like, no. So anyway, you can upload the whole thing, or you can upload a copy of a page of it. What you guys know is that in your parent handbook, or in maybe, it meets multiple indicators, right? So you upload that thing and you say, on page 2, it's this indicator. On page 40, it's this one. On page 30. But putting the page numbers is critical, because our data people won't hot and peck for it. You gotta tell us where it is. I actually had a few programs who didn't have page numbers and just hand wrote them in. That works too. But if you're creating a new handbook, put your page numbers on there. But yeah, this will be a very useful tool. We have created a tool for coaches that had combined both the standard and these and the evidence document. We just haven't been able to get it on that website just yet. So that's a document that we're going to hope to get into the hands of everybody who's preparing for this. But right now, if you're in the cycle, your coach has it and they're freely giving them out. So other resources in here. No, get back. Can't seem to. All right, this thing's driving me crazy. Let's go over to the parent section for a minute. So for parents, they can find resources in here that will not only tell them how they might qualify for financial support, but also how they can search for a program. Here's another way. There's multiple ways to get to these different elements. FAQs, but this is a really good one, how to find quality care. And there's a checklist in here. that helps them kind of go through, I think this is the one, to ask questions of the providers that they're looking for. So there's resources there. If you guys haven't heard them already, we've got multiple public service announcements on various radio stations around Colorado Shines, starting to direct families there. I'm very proud of this. You guys will maybe not like this, maybe will. But we've actually had 2 parent calls in the last month saying, please tell me more about the rating levels, and please tell me why my program is showing as not rated. And so those are the questions exactly what we're looking for to drive this forward. So when parents are starting to ask, folks will start to get engaged. We want parents to ask because we want them to be looking for quality support. And you know, a perfectly good explanation right now would be, we're in the exploratory phase right now. We're taking a look at it. We're taking our time to do it. But let me tell you about how my program's doing and how we need good quality elements now. The other thing that you can do before ever going into a rating is you can personalize your homepage. So for those of you guys, remember I talked about the personalized QRIS portal? There's a place for you to go in there, upload a picture of your program or your staff, tell parents what you want them to know about your program. You don't have to do anything beyond what you're doing currently to actually access that. So if you're a licensed provider, all you need is a login. You can go in and access that and personalize your page, and that's what parents will see when they look for childcare. And it could very well be at that place you say, not currently rated, but we're working on our level 2, or we're working through Colorado Shines at this point in time. Ask me how we're doing. I mean, just things that might, if somebody's really looking for that, they're not going to rule you out. So, are you ready?
Yes,
Awesome.
I have a new password.
So anyway, I would just go in here and poke around and have there's some like parent videos in here. It's really nicely done. And if you have suggestions for us, don't hesitate to let us know, because we love to hear from folks about what we can do better.
Okay, now I should be able to log in. Create a new password. I just have to remember this on my own computer. So if you haven't ever logged in before, this is the home page, and this is where you can click to register. Click here, or if you click on login, I'll show you there's a register link there, but here are resources that will be really helpful, including step-by-step videos on how to do these different pieces. I personally think that step-by-step video, and I didn't create it, so I'm not just promoting my own things, but about the early childhood professional credential is a helpful one, because it's not always super intuitive on where to submit everything. So this video walks you through it step by step in the system. So then, once you have an account, you can log in. If you don't, here's another place to register now. Okay, thank you, Jody. No, don't need to save that. If this whole student node thing can be a little confusing. This is the programmer speak that the developers of the system use, but if people can associate themselves with more than one employer, or with an employer and a community college, and so if you do that, then you might be prompted to which association do you want to work in at this point. I think most users, it's just one. This might even just be an administrator's thing that you all wouldn't see. So then once you're logged in, you can access the course catalog. So this is where those modules we've been talking about are. So you can see all the ones that count for level 2 in the Colorado Shines rating have this logo on them. So they're pretty easy to identify. So they're these. And to actually participate in the course, it's kind of like going through a shopping cart process, because that's how the LMS is designed, but there are no fees. but it's the same kind of process. So you get it, and then it's in your cart, and you need to check out. So then once you check out, then it takes you, this is your list of my courses. So this is where all of those courses that you're registered in are. And to actually then complete the course, you click in. And there are different aspects of the course here. You can see an overview of the content, the objectives, if there's any additional information, if there are downloads associated. So these are usually resources that you might need and might even need to actually do some experiences or activities in the course. Those are all available there. And then to actually do the course, you click on the module, and that opens up the course player. And now it's playing. If you don't complete, I totally closed myself out of there, didn't I? If you don't complete the course all at once, that's okay. You can exit and then go back in, and it'll go back in where you left off. So to go back into a course, you would go to My Learning Path and PD Planning, because you've already registered for that course. So you would see it in a couple of different places here. You see, well, actually this place right here is My Courses. So you can click directly in the course there, and that would open up that player module again. Or you can click on My Courses to see all of them. And then once you've completed a course, you'll see it in your area called My Transcript. So then you can click on My Transcript and see all the courses that you've completed. And this actually includes all the courses you've completed in the system. And then if you submit training certificates towards your credential that we then review and verify towards your credential, those will also show up here. So any course associated with you in the system, whether it's you completed it in the system or we documented that you completed it in the system, show up here in My Transcript. So then for the credential, you can go to your profile either right here by clicking on Edit Profile, or you can go to this site navigation over here and click on My Profile. If this whole site navigation menu ever gets in your way, you can unpin it and it goes away, and then you can access it again right there and repin it if you want. So you've got some flexibility. So in My Profile, you can update any of that information that you entered when you created your account, and you can access your credential. Also, when you first register, you're only able to enter one employer at that point. But then once you finish your registration, you can come back to current employment and go in and to edit it and add another if you'd like down here. So that's how you enter more than one employer. And when you're entering this information about your employment, you can select more than one, like the age group we were talking about. If you work with more than one age group, you can hold down Control and select, and you'll get as many as you want selected. Okay. So, let's see, I'm done with that. And let's look at the credential part. It took me all the way out of my profile. So in your profile, you see this right here that says Colorado EC Professional Credential. So this is in your profile because it's your credential. So you click on that. Eventually, as we add more credentials to the system, there's going to be more than one to choose from. Right now, we only have the one in there. So you see this is the credential. You can look at what are the criteria. So we talked about that you need different amount of points for each level. So this just provides you an overview of how many points you need for each level. If you already have a credential, then it's going to say your level and upgrade or renew. Tells you the date it was awarded, when it expires, and you can view your credential certificate here. So then to actually, if you haven't yet received one, this will just say apply. So you click on that. So now in here, and I'm going to unpin this so that we've got more room. This is where you see the different components, those different point areas we talked about. So experience. This is where you enter your experience, and it shows you the number of points that you've earned. You only you max out at 20. Remember I said that up to 20 points, so even though I've entered 25 years of experience, I'm getting 20 points.
And how is that verified again?
So how it's verified right now is there's this worksheet to help you calculate, and then you enter the number of years from that worksheet, and then you get the points right away. We are doing a random sampling verification, and so that's what it says right here in this text, is that by entering this information, you're acknowledging that it is true and accurate, and that if you're selected to provide further documentation, that you can provide that. And that if you're not able to provide that, we will adjust your points accordingly.
So if we have a gold credential and we send in our letters of verification, so we didn't keep letters.
We still have it on file, so you could use that. But we're awarding much more experience years in this new system, so we may not have, if you put in 20, we may only have up to 3 years documented, because that was the most we asked for in our previous credentialing system. We may have more. You may have submitted more in our previous one, I'm not sure. But yes, we would still have it on file. So if you're randomly selected, you'll get an email, and you'll be asked to contact Casey Herndon, our staff person who manages that, and she'll work with you on what you can submit and how you can document that experience. So don't panic, but it's a random selection at this point.
Does it have a cutoff as far as how far back it goes?
Well, since we only award up to 20 points for 20 years essentially is the most you need to document.
Does that include?
You kind of both win at the same time, so.
So there were some years that I was a director at the early
Mhm.
childhood. I can.
Yep. So if you look at this experience worksheet, it's a spreadsheet, and there are different types of experience that qualify. And so you select. In our old system, we only recognized a pretty narrow type of experience, but in this new system, we're recognizing experience more broadly. So if you just put in your employer and the contact information, the ages you work with, the hours you work per week, and your weeks per year, it's going to total that for you. So then you do need to kind of enter each year, and then it will give you, it does all that calculation for you, and over here will give you your total years based on that calculation of 1,820 hours equaling a year.
So they can fill out that versus actual letters from the.
So what the process is that you fill out this to determine your number. You then enter that number here, and you can upload your calculations to show us how you got that. You get the points right away. And then if you're randomly selected to provide further documentation, that's when you would provide the letters of experience. And then if you're not able to provide documentation for how many years you entered here, we would then reduce the points that you're getting. And you had a
My
question?
was, so teaching full-time, you know, with another person supervised, those are counting in it. Before, if there's any other experience as a full-time, you know, weekly basis, you know, for years, nanny, that doesn't count.
It does.
Oh, it does count into that. Okay.
Yep. So we're defining the experience more broadly. So it can be the direct service in a classroom, but also administration experience, you know, pretty much any early childhood experience. So that's where you document that. And then so it'll give you your points right away for that piece. And then to earn your points for college experience, this is where you upload your transcripts. It says diploma/degree, but we have to have transcripts, not diplomas. They are changing that for us, but they haven't changed it yet. So you click there to add a new degree, enter your school information, and again, we have to have official transcripts, and you upload it here. So this is where then you attach your, and then click save. You'll then see, it'll see like right here, it's got my master's from the University of Colorado, the date I earned it, and it says verified. It'll say pending until our staff review it. If for once it's either verified or not verified, if for some reason we aren't able to accept it, the system automatically sends you an email. So you want to make sure that your email account accepts and doesn't send PDIS emails to a junk folder or spam folder or something. It'll come from PDIS. You do, because a lot of times the people are not noticing those emails, and so they're not sure. This will change to say rejected, that it wasn't accepted, and people aren't sure why. We have an enhancement request that we've developed that we want people to be able to click on that and see the reason. That will be really nice, but our developers need to develop that. So it'll say verified once it was verified or rejected. And then here's where you see the points that you've earned. Because the system awards points for degrees and courses separately, we need to get points for coursework. Even if it's the same transcript, we need them submitted in both areas, because the system automatically awards the points once we click the verified button. So we can't click that verify button for coursework if it wasn't submitted to coursework. So if you have a degree that also has early childhood coursework in it, you want to submit it to both of those places. So it's the same process. Your institution, upload your transcript, and click save. So then that's your formal education. And then for training certificates, this is where you see it says click here to upload certificates for courses you've taken outside the system. Any of the modules you complete in the system will automatically award you points here. We don't have to verify that. It's in the system marks your completion, it then awards the points automatically. So this is for uploading training certificates that you already have completed. This gives you the information about what needs to be on that training certificate in order for us to be able to process it. And it aligns with the requirements for child care licensing in the new rule package. If you participated in coaching related to a training that was specifically tied to a training that you completed, then the coach can sign this verification letter saying, yes, this person received 8 hours of coaching as part of this training, and you can also upload that here, and that's how you would get the additional points for coaching. And so you upload your training certificates here. It can be one file. You can scan them all as one file, or you can do them separately. And then you click save. At this point in time, once you do that, you won't see that pending status. And again, that's another enhancement we've requested, that we want that certificate interface to look the same as this transcript interface, so that you can actually see what you uploaded and whether or not it's been reviewed yet. But until they build that for us, you don't see that. But you can call the help desk and they can confirm that it's there if you want that confirmation.
So I have a question going back to that coursework and stuff. So my teachers that have a degree in elementary ed, if they just uploaded their degree in the format, but then they didn't upload it into their academic coursework, it wouldn't be.
They might not have those points yet, so they should go back and upload it to the coursework area. For programs who are actually going through a rating window, we try to keep an eye out for that, and we can then upload it and do it and make sure all those points are awarded. But we don't automatically do that for everyone. We try to stay on top of that for programs currently in the rating process.
Well, I just got mine.
Uh-huh.
Short 1 point workforce. So I'm gonna do the resubmittal on them this way.
On your QRIS.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I'm just trying to figure
Right.
So that's where you and your coach are gonna wanna kinda go through that process, looking at all of workforce, not just the credential, but the other pieces, because you might have had a training that didn't get recognized or something, so.
So then if you have, this is where you would add, if you have a qualifying credential, license, or endorsement, you click here. You can see a list of those by clicking on this link. That opens a document that shows you the list and what the required documentation is that you need to submit. So then you enter the information about what it is and then upload the required documentation and click save. And then again, it'll show up as pending and it'll have all that information. And then once it's reviewed, then the points will be awarded. Once we implement demonstrated competencies, that's where you would see the points in this area. So that's the credential, submitting for the credential. Let's look at the self-assessment. So to access the self-assessment, you go to My Learning Path and PD Planning, which is where I am, and you actually go into my professional development plan, because it's the self-assessment is used to create the PD plan, so they're in the same. So here's the self-assessment. If you haven't yet done it, you won't see all this information below. You'll just see the self-assessment part. So click on self-assessment and it opens up, gives you some information about the competencies, and then this is the competency self-assessment. You can expand it in parts, so I've expanded it just to show the domains. These green numbers afterwards show you how many competency questions there are in each of the areas. So there's a total of 128. There are 11 in child growth and development, 6 in child observation and assessment, so on. If you haven't yet done any of them, it'll say 0 of 128, 0 of 11, and then it'll track it for you. So if you do part and you go out and you come back in and you want to see where you left off, you can see that if it says 11 of 11 here, but only 1 of 6 in child observation, then you know that that's where you left off. And so you could go ahead and click in there. These are then the categories. So again, it shows you how many in each category. And then here are the questions. So you select the answer that best describes your current level of ability. And you read these descriptions and determine what fits you best. It saves each time as you're going. So you don't need to worry about clicking save or anything. So there will be a little bit of a pause in the system. See how it paused right there? Because it's saving it for you as you do it. So you can either exit or finish later. Both of them are fine, and we'll save it the same way. And then once you've completed it, then you'll have the option to add a new goal. So when you add a new goal, it gives you the goal areas that you can choose, and then it populates the rest of this PD plan for you. And then you can edit your actions. So it'll give you these options, but then you edit the actions and set the actions of what you want to do to achieve your goal. So that's how you do the PD plan, and now I know we're at our time.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
about the Colorado Shines part? So we currently do not have CPP or any other government programs. We get knocked for not
No, so
having those?
what does happen when you fill out your application, there's like, do you have CPP, CCAP, those sorts of things, go ahead and just, no. The reason, there's a couple of reasons we ask that, but there's actually something in our scheduling system that will prioritize a site that has a high number of CCAP kids, and then you might get, somebody might jump up in front of you in line, but if you're not gonna get knocked down, or you're not gonna have to pay anything, or it's not gonna be an eligibility issue whatsoever, so. And maybe you'll, take CCAP when they start the tiered reimbursement.
But right now we're running to
Yeah,
refer.
understood.
So thank you all for coming and staying so engaged in
Yeah.
like the sleepiest part of the day.
It's horrible outside, by the way. I heard it was raining and yeah. Just miserable.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope you guys learned lots of good information. I know.
Do I want to stand up and stretch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do a
Don't
little
hesitate
stretch.
to call us.
That's the big takeaway.
Do some of the gear rolls, brain gym stuff.
Yeah. All right.